Good day, everyone. Hope you're all doing really well. Before we begin, note that the current Spiral Biz in Genshin is super fun. You've got lots of AoE on the first halves, and then if you're like me and you love like a Varesa plunge with Duran, it's just so much fun on the second half. Okay, but enough about that. Let's get to the main topic of today's video. Look, I've felt that gacha games for a while now are just inherently like junk food. You get a new one coming out, there's lots of enthusiasm, and especially for people that haven't spent money or are largely free to play, a new gacha literally breathes in a lot of new life because everything is reset. That guy that was a whale in the one game or in Genshin or whatever, look, he needs to restart. Everyone needs to restart when, let's say, for example, we're all now playing Wuthering Waves from the beginning. And in a certain sense, what you find is that a lot of games start as games, but they end up as subscription or as gacha monetization kind of proxies. That's kind of my experience, and I think it's because in the beginning of a game, when there's a lot to do, there's a lot to progress towards, a lot of quest and story to get through, it feels like you've got meaningful entertainment. But thereafter, it's just a chore to try and maintain, and one of the ways in which you can have continual fun is actually just to keep spending on the new units, because what do new units do? They synergize with old units. This gives you more and interesting different ways of playing the game, and so it just would always so happen that some enemies are specifically tailored for certain new characters and mechanics, so you don't want to end up being frustrated in a game that's already starving you of content. And so the cycle continues. And the beautiful thing is, well, once the one game can't really scratch that itch as much, you take on, in quotes, in air quotes, a bit of a break, or you put it on maintenance, in air quotes, and thereafter you progress with the new game, you get into the ecosystem, the community is nice, and eventually, the game starts taking a bit of a different direction. We don't release as many husbando characters as we used to in the past, or the quality of the story, or the animations, like the black screen or whatever in Honkai Star Rail comes up. There are always issues, and that's the thing. These games are always designed with the benefit of hindsight, so they always look at their predecessors. Something like in Honkai Star Rail, they looked at all of the pain points in Genshin, and this was my big issue with Honkai Star Rail, is that from a gameplay perspective, your biggest selling point was always going to be to solve the issues Genshin didn't solve. But, like, honestly, that doesn't still solve the issues that we had in Genshin, the quality of life issues. And it's the same like with Wuthering Waves. I think Wuthering Waves has done an excellent job overall with how they've progressed the game, but from a storytelling perspective, it's like, okay, new female character really likes Rover, and the one or two males that you do get have almost pretty much nothing to do with the Rover. It's just, that's why I love characters like Frolova, because she just challenged the Rover in a sense. That's why she was just so brilliant. Okay, tangent aside. So to get back to where I am, I think a lot of these gacha games by default are meant to be incomplete in their end game. You've got a bit of little work to do, and thereafter it's just events which are a couple of lightweight chores for you to just get through, and in other words, it's just there for the gacha companies to say, hey, our monthly number of active users is kind of higher. That's the whole point of games and so on. And then periodically you get like some big events, some big story progression, and then one or two flagship characters. And the hope then is that the gacha companies can sell you not only that character, but another bundle unit that works well with that character, breathes in a lot of life. There's lots of like noise being made online. There's always going to be controversy because this thing is not as diverse, or this thing's got the wrong skin color, or culture is represented, and there's always some controversy. And then the steam blows down, and then we have a rinse and repeat until we don't. And that's the interesting thing. If you've noticed online, the discussion and discourse around Genshin has actually kind of quieted and died down a bit. We don't have as many controversies and all of those things as before, and some of it is attributable to the fact that things have changed, but I also think it's because primarily fewer and fewer people are actively playing Genshin as much as possible. I think a lot of the communities have started to fragment more with the ever increase of gacha games, as well as the fact that a lot of us that played in 2020 Genshin, after 5 years, even if you were at university, life catches up to you. You need to start working, you need to start like doing all sorts of things. You can even tell from my channel this year how quiet things have been, and that's just because life does get in the way. There's a new cohort of people coming in that are really that they don't even know like any of the old classic controversies that we had, Ayaka versus Ganyu type of thing, Yelan versus Shingshu. I mean, these things would be like, what? Those were controversies? The whole thing with Raiden not working with Beta? What? I mean, first I've heard of it. And I think that's just what happens. A lot of the communities are being fragmented across the different games. And I think a part of it is that A, people do have a life. And I think B, for those that are still stuck in this gacha world, you realize that gacha games never actually give you anything meaningful. So unless you are someone that creates content on gachas and you can monetize and make money off of it, playing gacha games inherently have no advantage for you. Unless you use them in a professional capacity, maybe to study art, or there are ways to use it. But I think for majority of people, you are stuck with virtual achievements that achieve nothing. And I think that's one of the allures that you get with these extra gacha games just coming out, because it's, like I said in the beginning of the video, a chance for you to restart. It's a chance for you to again have an equalized playing field, to generate a bit of hype in your community and circle of friends, and then it just keeps on going. But fundamentally, you also get tired, and I think this is the big point that I want to make. When it comes to consuming content and things that are information dense and rich, that's what your brain craves. At least that is my experience. And what I find is that with gacha games, you have a lot of easy to get into type of events and gameplay loops and tutorials. But overall, when it comes to actually getting you somewhere in life, it falls flat. The writing of characters isn't always as deep as it would be, for example, when you read The Great Gatsby as a novel, and the intricacies of the characters, or something more modern, like let's say a manga or a light novel like ReZero and the anime figures, which just has beautiful character writing and world building. You don't really get all of that. You get a lot of breadth, and we've seen Genshin being very guilty of this. But in terms of information rich and dense content that you can take outside of the game, that you can ruminate about beyond the game, you don't really get that. And I think that is why there's a bit of a latent frustration where people don't get this high quality information that's useful, and then they just like they're stuck with these games. And that's a very, very big problem. I think that's why you don't get as much value as you keep on playing one game after the other game, instead of just being at a point of saying, look, I'm going to stop and I'm going to learn the Japanese language. Because if I learn the Japanese language as an example, I get a ton of information rich things, because now I can play my games, I can read stories, I can interact with people in Japanese, and it's just wow, there's a lot of content there. It unlocks a lot of rich cultural things that is very, very valuable, and things like Genshin then become a almost like a stepping stone just in helping you reach that fluency. So that's when a game can become information rich and dense for you, as a simple example. Outside of gaming, one of the things that I like doing is reading up on a lot of investment and a lot of quantitative stuff. For example, how do you generate random allocations for portfolios? You have rand fixed sum, convolutional fixed sum, and just the maths behind these things is just so rich. It's just, after reading it, you just feel incredibly satisfied. But if I go back and play a gacha game, and I just play Genshin, and then I log off and I play Honkai Star Rail, and then Honkai Impact Third, and then you go to Withering Waves, and you've done all these dailies, and it's like 40 minutes after that, you just feel tired, and you're just like, what have I really done with my time? And that is the most scary part. Whereas if you just read something academic for 30 minutes, you might actually be sitting and be like, let me just chew on this, because this is really good. And I can tell you from personal experience, by reading stuff like on my FRM, Financial Risk Manager, reading some papers and articles, you really start taking these things, applying it to your real life, and it feels like there is meaningful progress. And in that sense, things like gacha games and so on become what they should be. They're just games. This is why more recently, or actually throughout this entire year, I haven't C6'd characters whatsoever. I haven't gone that route because I felt like I can do so much better with my money, and games are exactly what they should be. They are just a fun bit of a way for you to relax, turn your brain off. There's nothing deep about it. It's a bit of entertainment. We all get that it's sometimes winter, it's 8 o'clock at night. There's no point in going out. It is really cold, so you can just huddle up and actually play a game. And that's the point of these things. There's an entertainment value and a place for these games, but beyond that, you're just not going to get that value. And I think that's the kind of realization that I've tried to make. And I've also tried to, you can tell me if I did a good job or not, try to communicate it in this video. All right, so without letting things go on for too long, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about this topic. Let me know what you think about this. Is this your experience? Is there some other perspective you want to share? I'd be very interested to hear about it. All right, guys, keep well and have a lovely day. Cheers.